Hey riders, welcome to another video in our adventure motorcycle training series. I'm Eric Lange with Ride Adventures, and I've been riding and guiding motorcycle trips around the world and creating our touring and renting services since 2008 now. You know, parking a motorcycle sounds like an incredibly easy and obvious thing to do, yet as a motorcycle tour guide, I see people making mistakes, some of them potentially dangerous, all the time. I want to make sure you're not making the same mistakes, so let's head into town and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, we found a good parking spot here with some examples to show you, and I want to walk through these mistakes, make sure you're not making them, because it can keep you from unnecessary bike damage or embarrassing moments, possibly injuries. So let's walk through each of these. So the first mistake I want you to avoid making is heading nose first down into a downward facing parking spot, one that goes up against a curb, maybe up against a building or something like that, just because the natural tendency with a car, for example, would be to pull forward, face down into it. Well, it doesn't mean you should be doing that on the motorcycle when you have instead the opportunity to back into the spot, because if you nose down into it front wheel first, guess what? You've then probably got a tall bike trying to scoot your way backward by kicking your feet and clawing and trying to paddle that thing backward uphill, or getting off the bike, and of course, same thing, you got a lot of effort trying to munch that thing up the hill and get your way back out of that spot, when again, what if instead you had just done sort of a back into the spot situation and use the engine to get out of your situation instead of having to grunt it out. Another mistake I see people making is parking with the kickstand too high or too low based on the space that they've chosen to park. So what I mean here is that in any parking spot where there is a slope or a gradient at all, you need to first consider what the fall line is. And I take that fall line from, say, the golfing situation. If you've ever been on the putting green, you know that the ball will turn with the fall line and it will go down the slope. You need to consider the same thing too as to how you park the motorcycle, whether it's going to be pointed up that fall line or pointed down that fall line. So the two parallel lines in a parking spot, for example, are going to make you kind of want to naturally park parallel with those lines. I mean, well, that's going to put you in a situation where your bike might be too far upright and could get blown over by the wind, again, if it's leaning too upright. Or if it's leaning too far down and left, down toward the kickstand side of things, well, then you've got that challenge of sort of grunting it to pick the bike up and get it up vertical so you can start riding away. So again, don't just assume that those parallel lines are the lines that you need to follow with your bike. Instead, consider, what would a ball do? If you put a ball down, a golf ball, tennis ball, anything like that, on that spot that you're going to park in, which way would the ball go? Make sure that your front wheel and your back wheel are along that line. And it doesn't matter, again, whether you're pointed uphill or downhill. In either case, if you are up or downhill on that line, make sure you're leaving it in first gear, or if your bike has a parking brake or whatever, you don't want it to roll away. But again, find that fall line, park along it, and you won't have to worry about your bike falling over or struggling to pick it up next time you get on it. Another mistake I see riders making all the time, especially in our group rides, is parking too close to each other, which sounds obvious, but what I mean in particular is parking so close to somebody else, or perhaps another vehicle or whatever, that you don't realize when you put the side stand down and lean the bike over, now your whole bike is maybe a foot closer to whatever you park next to, and it can leave for some real awkward moments as you've trapped somebody else in, or you find out that you're just about leaning up against a car or whatever it is. So it's sort of like anticipation with a lot of motorcycle riding. You need to think about what's next, you know, whether you're going over a rock or a rut, going around a turn, what is next? Same thing with parking. Think about what happens. You're going to park the bike and you're instantly going to lean it over when you put it on the side stand. So leave yourself and everyone else some space. And yet another mistake I see all the time that actually relates to what I just said about the parking and the side stand. For those of us who are parking along the side of the road, please park way off the road. Get yourself away from the pavement, because again, when you put that side stand down, next thing you know, you're leaning yourself or your bike, both of you, out into what might be traffic flying by. Dangerous situation. You don't want to do that. So again, get way off the road. Pull down a little side road or something like that. Get way into the gravel and don't park near the pavement, because you're going to end up a lot more closer to it as soon as you put that side stand down. A bit similar to one of the previous points I mentioned, just anytime you are on a slope, parking the bike and not having it in first or second gear can obviously lead to a disaster, right? You need something to hold the bike from rolling up or downhill ultimately. It could roll forward if you're pointed downhill and roll forward off the kickstand and collapse to the ground, or of course it could just fall down backwards and slide, dragging the kickstand. So anytime you're on a slope of any kind, in fact, as a good general rule, anytime you're parking the motorcycle, make sure you leave it in gear. And yet another mistake I see people making is in incredibly windy situations, parking wrong. So we come across these spots in the world, particularly Patagonia. If you've ever been down there with us, you know that certain parts of Patagonia, the eastern side of the Andes Mountains in Argentina, can be incredibly windy. We're fighting wind all day long, crosswinds, and the helmet is actually turning on my face so that it's bending my nose over like this, and your neck gets stiff and sore, and it's very, very powerful winds in other places in the world too. But when you're in those situations, think of your bike like a sailboat, if you will. And that if you park it directly perpendicular to the wind that's coming in, guess what? You got a chance of having your bike blown over. As soon as you stop and put your feet down, you might struggle to hold it up, or as soon as you put it down on its side stand, depending on which direction the wind is coming from, it could blow your bike over as soon as you walk away. Kind of like the fall line we talked about with the way the slope goes, you need to park your bike accordingly. Park your bike either into the wind directly or pointing downwind. Avoid having it fall over when you're not looking. So as promised, those are pretty easy mistakes to avoid. Just watch through them and then practice it. Think about it and anticipate next time before you go into a parking spot. Is this the right way I should be doing it? Just because the lines point that way doesn't mean that's how you should be parking. So anyway, hope the information helps. Share the video with other people. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit the notifications button so you see more videos that we're making. And leave us comments below and let us know if there's something else you've thought of that we forgot to mention in this video. So thanks for watching, everyone. Ride on. We'll see you out there.